Hi Gemini, welcome back to the Astrology 33 channel. This is your March 2026 tarot reading. Thanks to those of you who have liked, viewed, shared, and subscribed to the channel. I appreciate all of that. For those of you new to the channel, as far as what we have in front of us, it's a 12 card spread, with each of those cards representing a different house of the zodiac, starting with your sign, Gemini, is the first house, all the way through to Taurus, representing the 12th house. And once we get to that main spread, we'll actually pull an oracle card for some additional insight. As far as the decks being used this month, for the main tarot deck, we have the Spirit Keeper's Tarot, and for the oracle card, we'll be using the Wisdom of the Oracle. But we're actually going to start the reading off by rolling those astrology as we have in front of us to get an idea of where your focus should be as far as that goes. Alright, we have Capricorn. So for you guys, Capricorn is actually an 8th house energy. Astrologically speaking, it's a little quiet there in the zodiac, but generally speaking, 8th house points to death, rebirth, intimacy, and investments. Alright, we have the moon. So the moon's definitely going to be pretty active as far as there's going to be a full moon eclipse in Virgo on the 3rd of March, and that's actually your 4th house of home roots family. And then we're actually going to have a new moon in Pisces on the 18th of March, and that actually is your 10th house of career and social status. So 2 significant placements there. And then technically, I mean, it would already be April 1st, but the next lunar cycle after that really would be the full moon in Libra. So, but usually when the moon pops up, I do tell people to pay attention to those primary lunar cycles as they move through the month. And we have 6. So 6th house energy for you guys is Scorpio. That area of the sky is pretty quiet right now as well. But in general, 6th house points to health, work, and daily routines. So we'll keep all that in mind as we go through the main spread. Alright, so representing the 1st house, which in general points to personality, self-awareness, and appearance, we have the 4 of Scepters. So this is actually an Aries energy here. And usually this is an energy that points to partnership, expansion, growth. So now on the one hand, this could just be saying that as we progress more toward Aries season, you might start to feel this energy more. But regardless, I feel like this is saying you will have a meeting in the minds with someone who you feel like you can grow and expand with. So of course, it could be in a romantic sense, right? But even just business partnerships, a friendship, especially given that Aries energy for you guys represents your house friendship. So definitely looks like there's going to be a strong connection that you guys can grow this month. All right, in the 2nd house of possession, self-worth, and finances, we have the Shining Flame. So this is the equivalent of the Knight of Wands in this deck, which is a Sagittarius energy. So yeah, so it could just be saying that for you guys, maybe the key to experiencing some growth when it comes to finances might be through partnering with others, right? Because that is a partnership house for you guys, Sagittarius. So yeah, could just be saying that that's going to be the key for you guys this month, is actually to partner up with someone. And I feel like seeing this energy in general to me says that really it's going to be that you could bounce good ideas off of each other. So that's going to be the key there. All right, for your 3rd house energy, which generally points to communication, short journeys, and siblings, we have the 5 of Swords. So very fitting to see this come up here because we pretty much have Mercury retrograde starting today. So it could just be a reminder to say that, hey, try not to let things get out of hand when it comes to communication, right? With the understanding that, hey, maybe someone might say something that might sound one way, but they might have meant it another way, right? Or flip side of that, if you're the one saying something, maybe the other person misunderstands it and it could blow up into an argument. So it doesn't have to be the end of the world, certainly, but I feel like this is saying if you start to get a feeling like the communication's going a little bit haywire, maybe your best bet will be to try to withdraw from the conversation for the time being and revisit it at another time. And I would say especially watch out for those lunar cycles we mentioned as well, as where those you could see those energies peaking around then. So for the 4th house energy, which generally points to home roots and family, we have the 4 of Swords. So this is definitely a good energy to see here because to me this says that ultimately when you are in your home environments, right, you could get some relaxation and maybe some healing, right? So if there are, especially if there maybe are some words that might be spoken that might go the wrong way, I feel like this is saying that, if you are able to take some time to withdraw, you should be able to um, get over it rather quickly. And I feel like this is just saying that you might just find peace in general within your home environment, right? So maybe if the outside world is a little chaotic, right, with people misunderstanding each other and arguments and conflicts, could just be saying withdrawn into your shell for a bit might not be the worst thing this month. So for the fifth house energy, pointing to romance, creativity, and children, we have the Force. So this is the equivalent of the Strength card in traditional tarot, which is Leo energy. So Leo is the natural ruler of the fifth house. So to see this energy pop up here to me says that you'll probably be feeling pretty tapped in creatively. So maybe, again, like I said, through partnering up with someone, you might be bouncing some really strong ideas off of each other, and that could be where the growth comes in there. But also, I feel like this is saying that this is, to me, a good indicator that if there are these types of energies around, I feel like this is a good indicator that you withdraw from it as well. Because another way I look at this energy as well is kind of keeping your ego in check, right, through a more mature viewpoint. So these are definitely very much, this is an energy of ego conflicts. And to see this here says to me that, if you notice others might be trying to pull you into that type of energy, you're unlikely to take the bait. So that's a good thing there. All right, so as we saw, sixth house energy came up as significant with the dice. And as for your card representing the sixth house, which again, to recap, is health, work, and daily routines, we have the Eight of Chalices. So this actually represents the first 10 degrees of Pisces. So some of you might already be feeling this way when it comes to that area of life. But yeah, so maybe this is saying that for some of you, when it comes to your work lives, maybe you feel like there's a lack of fulfillment there, right? And you might start to explore if there's other opportunities that you should be pursuing. Maybe you feel a little bit of a level of detachment from what you're doing, right? And you might want to feel more connected to what you do on a day-to-day basis, especially if you do feel creative energies flowing through you. So there could be some exploration around that for you guys this month. And if that's the case, some tricky energies, like we mentioned, the Mercury retrograde pretty much just started, but there will be that new moon in Pisces, which is your career house, so maybe that could spark some ideas in you as well. All right, so representing your seventh house of partnerships, contracts, and relationships, we have the Seven of Swords. So Aquarius energy here. So yeah, so what I'm kind of getting from this, taking the third house energy into consideration that we see now the seventh house energy, I feel like this is saying this might not be the best energy to discuss beliefs, at least not be on the surface level, So whether that be political viewpoints, religious viewpoints, you name it, just maybe even general life philosophies. I feel like this is saying people might get into those types of conflicts over those things this month, especially given that the Mercury retrograde is in Pisces, right? Which that could point to beliefs and maybe confusion around those things. So I feel like this is saying you might want to try to avoid those types of conversations this month if possible. But yeah, I just get a feeling that people around you might be acting a little bit more erratically than normal. And again, like I said, this to me is a good indicator that more than likely you will be able to catch yourselves along with this Four Swords energy, right? And just withdraw from that type of energy, but can't hurt to get that warning. All right, so for the eighth house, pointing to death, rebirth, intimacy, and investments, we have the Six of Chalices. So this is a Scorpio energy here, and to see this here, it could just be saying that for some of you, part of what this creativity could be pointing to could just be saying maybe for some of you, you're going to be reconnecting to something from your past, right? Maybe something that brought you a lot of joy and pleasure, but for whatever reason, you might have abandoned it, right? Maybe at the time you didn't think it was practical. Maybe it just didn't seem like you'd be able to pull it off successfully. So now you might start to feel these things flowing to you again and feeling strong pull there, possibly because you might just reconnect with someone from your past, right? And then in doing so, that's going to put you back in touch with that side of yourselves that maybe you had to abandon for a bit, but now you want to reconnect with it. All right, so for the ninth house, which generally points to philosophy, higher learning, and foreign affairs, we have the the five of scepters. So this is the equivalent of the five of wands. So similar energy to the five of swords, and again, like we said, given that this could point to philosophy, um, foreign affairs, right? This is another indicator. Like I said, it seems like this is just not really the type of month to discuss beliefs with people on a deeper level. Of course, maybe with people in your close circle, that's fine, right? But I feel like people you might have just met, right? It might not be the time to get into debates about those kind of things because, again, even if people are going into it with good intentions, right? With the Mercury retrograde being in Pisces, which is a bit of a weaker energy anyway, people are more likely to misrepresent themselves through their words this month, even if not meaning to do so in a harmful way. All right, so for the 10th house, pointing to career and social status, we have the 10 of swords. So this is actually a Gemini energy here. You can see the Gemini symbol on the card, but yeah, this is an interesting one here because, like I mentioned, with the Eight of Chalices energy, which in this deck is referred to as the defector, it does seem like if you guys do walk away from a job or, just abandon a career path altogether, it does seem like it would be your choice, right? So I guess that would be the positive there, right? It doesn't seem like someone's throwing you aside, but there is at least a concern that, you might not do it in the cleanest of ways. So just be on the lookout for that. So it could just be one of those things, right, where maybe if you had resentment building up for a while within your work lives, right, and then finally you just let it all out in a more negative manner. That's something to watch out for there. Again, especially like we said, all of the energy. There's going to be tons of energy going through your 10th house. So we already mentioned, of course, the Mercury retrograde, the new moon, but on top of that as well, Mars is going to be there pretty much from the 2nd of March on. On a more positive note, you'll have Venus there until the 6th of March, so that could help soften things a little bit. But yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of energy moving through there, so um, that can point to a bit more of a tense energy in that area of life. For the 11th house, which points to friendships, groups, hopes, and wishes, we have the Four of Chalices. So it's referred to as the Hollow Void in this deck. And yeah, again, like I said, I feel like you might be seeking something deeper, right? So again, maybe within your work lives, right? Maybe in the conversations you have with people, right? So that's where there could be that bit of a conflict, right? Where, like I said, it seems like this would be a good month to avoid trying to discuss, life philosophies with people, religious beliefs, political beliefs, right? But it could just be something that you're yearning for at the same time, right? So you might be feeling a lack of fulfillment as far as that goes. So maybe, you're just exposed to more surface level conversations, but you would prefer something deeper, right? Now, if that's the case, it still brings me back to this first house energy, which is to say that it looks like this is saying there is going to be at least one strong connection that you can get that from this month. And again, seeing this as the first house energy here too, and it is an Aries energy, you could just be saying that, yeah, you might need to be a little bit patient, ride the wave through Pisces season, and then when we get to Aries season, more toward the end of March, things might start to flow more naturally, which would make sense as far as the Mercury retrograde pretty much ends on the same day that the sun moves to Aries. So could just be as simple as that, right? And usually you guys are pretty good at picking up on cues when it comes to communication. So if it just seems like people might be a little bit more on edge than usual, could just be saying, maybe your best bet's to withdraw a little bit, right? With that Four of Swords, ride the wave, and come Aries season, things will start to flow a lot more naturally. All right, so for the 12th house, which points to spirituality, blind spots, mental health, we have Last Judgment. So yeah, well, in this deck, it has a bit of a dramatic name, Apocalypse. But yeah, it could just be saying that, again, I feel like there's going to be things coming back up to you from your past that are really going to be calling to you in a strong way this month. And again, like I said, they might have been things that you might have thought were fully in the past, right? They weren't going to come back up, or the opportunity to pursue these types of things wasn't going to come around again, but yet here they are, right? So definitely something to be on the lookout for there. All right, and at the bottom of the deck we have the Seeker. So this is actually the equivalent of the Fool in traditional tarot. There's actually 3 of these cards in this deck, and this one is Spirit in Search of Signs. So yeah, so like I said, it seems like there is this part of you that wants to just experience life more deeply, right? But like I said, the unfortunate thing is, as you interact with people, people might be a little bit more on edge. So it might not be the time to delve deeper with people who you know in a more casual way, right? Whereas, I feel like this is saying you can still potentially count on those closer to you, right? Especially that 4 of Swords energy and the 4th house, saying that you could find your peace there. But as far as the people you just met last week, right? Maybe not the time to delve too deep with them for the time being. Maybe April would be better for that. But we'll see what the Oracle card adds to the mix. So, like I mentioned, we're going to pull a card from the Wisdom Oracle deck. So I'm just going to give this a few more shuffles, then we'll cut the deck and pull a card. All right, take this card here, get this out of the way, and we'll see what cards you guys got. All right, we have the Fates. There's the artwork, and the number is 17. All right, Essential Meanings says fate, karma, acceptance that there are things you cannot change, and knowing what those things are. The Oracle's message. The Serenity Prayer sums up the meaning of this card. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There are things in life you will never have control over. The conditions brought on by the evolution of the collective, by nature, and by your past experiences may be fated, preordained by spirit for a greater purpose you cannot understand in this lifetime. It may not be in your cards to understand why certain events occurred, but you can accept the mystery and work with what those events in your current circumstances have to teach you. This is the wisdom contained in the Serenity Prayer. So reading that message there definitely seems to support the thought that, like I said, maybe you're just going to be in a more reflective mood this month, seeking deeper experiences, right? And like I said, maybe just being a little bit more withdrawn this month as well. The relationship message says other people are who they are. You can't change them. The challenge is to accept them as they are and not try to make them otherwise to suit you. This is a time to look at how you attempt to mold people to fit your view of how they should be, so you can remain in a relationship and avoid discomfort. What if who they are and whatever is happening between you and them in this situation is perfect from the perspective of spirit? Now is the time to accept what you cannot change, even if it means that you honor yourself, spirit, and the other person by moving on. Love unconditionally, for each of us is on our own journey, and we cannot direct that of another. Be aware that this relationship is indeed fated, and you are meant to evolve into a better version of yourself as a result of it. So definitely an interesting message here, especially seeing that 7 of Swords energy in your relationship house, and then we mentioned the Force energy, or the Strength card as it's called in most decks, in your 5th house. So yeah, it could just be one of those things where I feel like patience might be called for, right? And like I said, if people seem to be communicating in a way that seems a little off-putting, maybe try to extend them grace, with the thought that, like we said, we do have the Mercury retrograde, so it's possible they're not representing themselves the way they intend, and you might not be receiving things the way that they intend. So at least in the short term, just keep that in mind. The prosperity message says, your experiences concerning prosperity and abundance are beyond your personal control right now. You are being invited to accept what is unreservedly. This could be a temporary situation seemingly thrust upon you by outside forces, but there is an underlying purpose you can't see that has been determined by the fates. It could be a situation you are unprepared for, and you may not understand how it will benefit you in a moment. Do not fight the situation. Ride it out and see where it leads. Surrender to it, and the serenity you need to make good choices from here on out will be given to you. You will indeed flourish. So yeah, definitely an interesting message there. Especially because we do see energies where, like I said, you might be feeling a little bit restless when it comes to your work odds. Like I said, especially seeing the Destroyer in the 10th house. So yeah, there could definitely be some interesting energies hitting for you guys this month. Like I said, it seems like it would just be a good month to try to give others grace and even yourself for that matter, right? And maybe withdraw a little bit if you feel like things are starting to go sideways. With the thought that, yeah, it seems to be a more temporary thing, especially, like I said, seeing this Aries energy in the first house, which could just be saying, hey, if you could ride out these few weeks, if they do go a little crazy, by the time we get closer to Aries season, you'll feel like things are back in balance. But yeah, hope it resonates for you guys, and we'll wrap up there. All right, bye.